Hakaniyun. That means hello, how are you, in the language of the Shoshone Native American people. So I thought this morning we would borrow the song from all of the tribes who come together for a powwow. The words don't really mean a lot because they all speak different languages, but it's a good song to sing together in community. So let's do it. We first have drums. Ha ha away, ha ha away, ha ha away, ha ha away, ho ha ha away. Now our first story is a true story about a young Shoshone girl whose name was Sacajawea. Sacajawea, Her True Story, by Joyce Milton, illustrated by Shelley Henneberger. This is a map of the United States of America, but there weren't very many states in the western part of America. So some explorers went out to find out if they could get all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And they met up with Sacajawea and her husband about there. And then they traveled 2,000 miles to the Pacific Ocean and back. Sacajawea lived 200 years ago. She was a Shoshone Indian. The Shoshones loved horses. Not all Native American tribes had horses. So from time to time, some other tribes would steal their horses. And one time they stole Sacajawea. So she lived with another tribe far away from the Shoshones. She married a French trader who could talk to the Indians in words and sign language. So when the explorers, Lewis and Clark, came along, they knew they would need some help with the indigenous people along the way. So they asked him if he could go along and be a guide. And he said, yes, but my wife, Sacajawea, can speak Shoshone, and she will be important. So she went along too. When the ice had melted, the Indians told Lewis and Clark that mountains lay ahead of them after they went first with boats and canoes. So to get across the mountains, they would need horses, Shoshone horses. Only Sacajawea spoke Shoshone. She went along with the explorers with her baby boy, little Pomp, on her back in a cradle board. Right from the start, when they were still in the boats, Sacajawea showed how brave she was. One time, a gust of wind tipped her boat. Her husband panicked, and boxes of supplies slipped out into the water. Nobody else thought that they could reach them, but Sacajawea leaned over the side and grabbed the boxes before they were swept away. They needed those boxes in order to do their trip. So Sacajawea showed them the way to the Shoshone tribe where they could get the horses. And when Sacajawea went inside the chief's tent, her heart filled with joy. The chief was her brother. She burst into tears and rushed to his side. So the chief sold them the horses, and now the explorers could cross the great Rocky Mountains. but they had to look out for grizzly bears and wolves. But with the horses, for once, Sacajawea had an easier time. She and Pomp got to ride. There wasn't much food left. Sacajawea dug up some roots that were good to eat. She knew where to find them. When they got to the other side of the mountains, they saw a new tribe, the Nez Perce, and they said they would keep the horses while the explorers went on to the Pacific Ocean. So the explorers started building canoes. But now they were going to be facing new indigenous people, people that might be afraid that they were coming for a fight. But in fact, when they saw Sacajawea and Little Pomp, they changed their minds. No war party would bring a mother and baby along. Finally, they came to a place 20 miles from the ocean. One day, there was news that a monster had washed up on the beach. Captain Clark knew that monster must be a whale and decided to take a few men to get some of the whale meat. Sacajawea begged to go along. She had come all this way. She wanted to see the great sea. Clark agreed. So on a cold day in January in 1806, Sacajawea got her wish. She looked at the Pacific Ocean. It was time to go back, and Sacajawea and Pomp and her husband went back to the fort where they had been picked up. They were welcome to go all the way back to a different place where Captain Clark lived, but they decided to stay closer to the Native American people. There are some mysteries about Sacajawea. We don't know how long she lived, but we know that she was strong and full of courage, that she helped find food, she helped guide the way, and she was a person who was a peace symbol for the Lewis and Clark expedition. So here is a coin that we have to honor her, a golden dollar coin. Here is Sacajawea, and this is the golden dollar coin that came out in 2000 to honor Sacajawea. Let's be some of the animals we saw in the story about Sacajawea. So, can you growl like a grizzly bear? Grrr! Can you bark like a dog? Can you gallop like a horse? Neigh! Can you jump like a frog? On your lily pad, ready? Jump! Jump! Now, can you slither like a snake? Can you fly like a bat? Can you howl like a wolf? A woo! Can you stretch like a cat? Are you ready? Stretch and arch your back and stretch. Exhale. Excellent. Now, let's look at another woman who led people from one place to another. Her name is Harriet Tubman. She persisted. American Women Who Changed the World. Written by Chelsea Clinton, illustrated by Alexandra Boiger. Sometimes being a girl isn't easy. At some point, someone may tell you no, or tell you to be quiet, and may even tell you that your dreams are impossible. Don't listen to them. These women certainly did not take no for an answer. They persisted. Harriet Tubman was born a slave. Slaves were people who were owned by other people. And in our country, mostly it was black people who were owned by white people. They made them work and they didn't give them any pay. Now, instead of remaining a slave, Harriet Tubman persisted. She escaped from slavery and became the most famous guide leading people to freedom. She risked her life many times to lead countless slaves to freedom, including her family, friends, and strangers. Every person she led to freedom arrived safely. Here is Harriet Tubman. And inside is a picture of Harriet Tubman leading the runaway slaves. Here they are behind her, in the middle of the night, following the North Star. She did such a wonderful job. She saved so many people. 300 people she led to freedom, that we are going to make a $20 bill with Harriet Tubman's picture on it. We have a $20 bill with a man's picture on it, but now we're going to have a new one soon. Harriet Tubman led the slaves to a place where they would be free in the middle of the night. And as a guide, she would follow the North Star. Now, in the night sky, we can see what we call the Big Dipper. And if you follow the stars on one side of the Big Dipper up to the bigger star, that's the North Star. And if you follow that star, you will end up in places further north where people are free. This is a squash or a gourd that has a cup cut out of it. And it's kind of a portable cup you could take on a trip. And so we think this is what Harriet Tubman's groups of slaves ran away to the north with. And they saw the Big Dipper as a drinking gourd. And they had this song. Follow the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd. The North Star will show us where we will be free. Follow the drinking gourd. Sing it with me. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. The North Star will show us where we will be free. Follow the drinking gourd. Now, if Harriet Tubman and her family and friends and the people she helped to escape would say goodbye, they might say farewell, be well. The Shoshone Native American language doesn't have a word for goodbye. The word they have is buinuhi, buinuhi, and that means see you sometime. It's like when we say, see you later.